It's that time for Free Coaching Friday. Once a week, every Friday, on Fridays that I'm available anyways. If I'm like really sick or something, I might not be around. But hey, everyone gets sick, but I'm not right now because it's Security Awareness Month and it's too important of a month for us to miss. So let's talk about security awareness. So one of the things that I just have always been talking about, if anyone has worked with me career-wise as a client, something along those lines, is security awareness, because I used to help companies build and launch security awareness programs, things like that. And for those of you who are new to this on the YouTube channel, it's the best place for those who just really want to watch. And then if you want to get involved in the chat and you want to ask me questions, then join Facebook to go to the notiaSquad in the link in the description below. For the notiaSquad, if you join the notiaSquad, you can ask questions. If you just want to watch, check us out on YouTube, subscribe, you can watch these every week. So for anyone who's not trying to ask questions, doesn't really matter how you prefer to view. It's Free Coaching Friday either way, where we talk about cybersecurity and DevSecOps, because that's what I do, and it so happens to be Security Awareness Month. Cybersecurity matters for the whole world. So I'm streaming a little earlier today. Usually I stream around 8 o'clock. I guess it's still kind of around that time. I don't even know what time it is. Let's see. It is 6:38 where I live in Mountain Standard Time, so it's a little early. But let's talk about security awareness, what it is, why it matters, because it's one of those things that people will pay lots of money for. And then there is one of those things that for people who don't know what it is and they don't have it, then they lose lots of money. Which is a weird... it's a weird two-sided thing, a weird two-sided piece here. So one of the most annoying things that you'll notice is whether it's your cell phone or your email or whatever you're doing, you get those emails. Not just the emails, but you go and you get those ads popping up, and sometimes you click on an ad or you get an email and maybe you clicked on that email. Doesn't matter what it was, but all of a sudden now strange things start happening to your system, strange things start happening to your computer, and worst case scenario, now your entire company has been breached, all because of one click. Now, it is pandemic season, and one of the downsides of that is a lot of people are at home, which means that, spam and malicious spam in emails, text is at an all-time high. And for those of you who have been receiving those super annoying text spams with little links in a text message even, it has now gone beyond email, where even your cell phone is not safe from spam links that will actually hack your phone, and people can basically get like your banking information just because you clicked on the wrong link in a text message, which is terrifying. That brings us to Security Awareness Month, because for those of you who are in the cybersecurity group, notiaSquad, that I run, you probably aren't the sorts to necessarily need more security awareness training, but I'll tell you why security awareness training still matters to those who know good and well how to avoid spammy links. It's because your family members, your co-workers, and if you have kids or young ones, it doesn't really matter who, everyone else around you is being targeted, even if you think that you're not the target. And if you have a household that doesn't just have you in it, then your household is vulnerable just by having other human beings in your environment who are connected to your network, even people that you trust, because they might click on the wrong link at the wrong time without realizing it. And with security awareness training and cybersecurity awareness, what that is it's just saying that we want to be aware that cybersecurity is a thing. We want to be aware of how to be safe online. These things matter. And so because October is Security Awareness Month, let's just take a little look. Let's just talk about, what exactly is security awareness. So security awareness, this is where we basically say it's the part of cybersecurity that's basically for everyone. So maybe not everyone's trying to be a hacker. Maybe if you are an ethical hacker and you're trying to teach people how to not do things, then you can use your coding skills to help everyone else who's normal learn the hard way by clicking on links that you created, but then you can have a discussion with people. And that's security awareness training, where we as cybersecurity professionals make a general assumption that the number one thing overall that makes us unsecure as, just a species, what makes us unsecure online is people. People. Human error, making mistakes with who knows what. And you know what? I make mistakes. I do strange things that I didn't mean to do at times. It just happens. It's something that just happens. We all do things. We all make mistakes. We all make slip-ups. And human error is legitimately the thing that's going to just basically, got to be safe. And as someone said, don't click on those shorted URLs. So if you see a URL that doesn't look like something, we're going to talk about some things that you can tell those who are important to you, including cybersecurity for everyone. Things like, don't click on bad links. Now, those who follow me generally know what a URL is, so I don't need to necessarily talk about what a URL is. And while we as professionals know that we shouldn't be clicking on bad links, one thing that we can do is we can figure out ways to create safe bad links to educate people with around us in our immediate vicinity. And this is something that, if you're working at a company, this is one of the things that you do if you build what's called a security awareness program, where you sit in a lab, you make a whole bunch of fake phishing attacks, and then you phish your whole company and try to see who do you need to have a discussion with. And the interesting thing is, it's much harder than you think to navigate having those discussions with people, because people try to hide or they try to lie and say that they didn't click on those links. And then you'll send out a fake test email at a company and be like, hey, we're going to send out an email to everyone at the company, or maybe a couple of emails throughout the week to everyone at the company, and see if someone clicks on one of these dangerous links. And so then someone clicks on one of these bad links in an email, and then it's the job of the cybersecurity professional to figure out, okay, so we need to figure out how to A, talk to this person, and then B, if they don't improve, we need to think about what the repercussions are, because ultimately some companies just fire people. Some companies try to have a discussion first. Some companies try to set up a side training, and they'll be like, okay, so every month we have security awareness training, and that's a job, is just having a job where you teach people not to click on bad links. Oh my gosh, it's someone in the group said it. It's so true. They said, phishing campaign, people always click. It's so true. Anyone who's ever done phishing campaigns, phishing campaigns of all sorts, it's actually terrifying. It makes you realize just how unsecure your company is, no matter what company you go to. I used to help other companies run security awareness campaigns. Without fail, I agree. The person who said it, spot on. Someone always clicks on those crazy links. It's oh, how many times do we have to talk about this? And so really, this is a social engineering thing. When we're talking about it from a professional standpoint, from the back end, this is social engineering the masses. That's what this is. This is what it really is. This is what security awareness training really is. It's kind of like trying to herd cats, really. And you've probably heard that phrase for other things, maybe some of you, if you've ever heard of the phrase, it's kind of, people are kind of like trying to herd cats. Well, it's like that when you're trying to get people not to click on highly volatile links that are going to just wreck your company. So you want to try to come up with other things to design your company's network, or the way that they log in, or when you give everyone their computer for the first time, what do you do to that computer before handing it to the end user who's going to click on those links, so that when they click on those links, not if, when they click on those links, their work laptop or computer is not going to just basically just spread madness across your network and just crush your company. And so this is a thing that matters for every single hire, even, especially the bigger company gets. It's what do you hand the people that you hire, and then what do you continuously over time due to like update the things behind the scene. And so this is the side of cybersecurity that's for everyone, where the end users generally have no idea what's going on. They're just doing their jobs. If you've ever worked with like most companies have at least a sales team, even small companies. So even if you've worked at a tech company that has almost all tech people, they're still salespeople. And the people who aren't the tech people, you can try to convince them of things, you can try to talk to them about who knows what, but at the end of the day, there's a social engineering challenge that comes with security awareness training. A huge social engineering challenge, because people are going to click on those links. Let's just put it on the board. People will click on those links. And we don't need to sugarcoat it. Let's just say exactly what you'll see at a company. Most of the time, this is like, if you're working on a cybersecurity help desk or as an analyst or anything where you ever have to interact with users at all, like, cleaning up malware off of systems because that's a job, or being like the response team who goes and scrapes the data and analytics for the incidents, no matter what you're doing, you're just going to deal with the fact that it shouldn't be funny to me. It's just that one of those things that you have these conversations with people who are new to this stuff, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, we're going to make our company unhackable." Nah, the bigger the more successful your company gets, the easier it's going to get to hack. That's even includes my company. So the more my company like grows, and the more people who end up in my company, just the higher likelihood that I'm just going to get hacked. I'm a cybersecurity. I'm telling everyone here that I'm going to get hacked, most likely. What's more important with a security awareness campaign is also, in the final piece of this, is it's important to understand how you're going to react when everything happens. So I'm just going to say, you want to have a reaction plan for when disaster strikes. Just simply put, that's what we want to know. You just want to have a reaction plan. Oh yes, and for some of you missed some of these sessions, but you made it. So yeah, and welcome to everyone who's jumping in. We're just getting started, so you just made the beginning. So when you're working with people, it really is just a matter of like, okay, they're going to click. What are we going to do about it? That is security awareness training 101 when you're actually managing a security awareness campaign for a company, like for real, in the real world. Now, on the other side, you have security awareness training, and you'll see these companies like here we go. I'll say Living Security. I think this is the right website. Hopefully it's not something I'm not expecting. Okay, so like this says experience a game-changing security culture, and they do gamified security awareness training, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. But something when people think security awareness training, sometimes what people think of more often than how we actually manage ongoing security awareness at a company and ongoing cybersecurity at a company. Well, some companies will just stop at the thought of, oh, so security awareness training is just, we just have to give everyone this one training and they're done forever. Now, while the training is good, yes, the training is good. You want to get everyone at your company trained for security awareness. There has to be a continuous element for it to actually work, which means that, maybe you end up doing something like this once a month, and you watch what everyone's clicking on and watch certain things. And then if we go to companies like, I don't even know what the URL is for this, so I'm just going to Google it and let Google tell me what the URL is. Infosec has this, it's actually, I've worked with Infosec before, security awareness training. They have this security awareness training called Infosec Iq. It's this thing right here. One of many. I'm just showing all kinds of security awareness things in general. I'm trying to remain agnostic here. I'm not marketing any of these. I am just simply talking about security awareness training. And the other one I was showing is there are trainings. That's the point of me showing this one right here, Living Security. It's like, hey, let's have a training for a weekend. Okay, great. This weekend, everyone's going to learn security awareness. Wonderful. Okay, awesome. Great. That's a good thing. That's a good start. That's a start. Emphasis on a start. So if a company hires you to do security awareness training, they're like, hey, we want to hire you to help us start a cybersecurity program. Almost the first thing you're going to start is a security awareness program. If you're a new CISO, or maybe company is too small to have a CISO and they're just like, you know what, let's just have a cybersecurity person. You want to be our cybersecurity person and you agree, you want to get straight to security awareness training. That's just simply put going to be far and away even more impactful to a business than your technical kung fu. So we might have all the technical kung fu in the world, and we can dodge and weave and strike back. But the problem with the technical kung fu is it's only helpful in the reactionary phase. Well, it's helpful in other portions of it too. The technical stuff is good. I'm not undermining it. It's just we have a maturity of it where what makes the greatest impact is reducing the human error first. We reduce the human error first. Once human error has been reduced, then we can get into adding the technical bits and start to automate it. And then this is where we start to build a true long-term maturity model. Maturity model is how we have the birth of a cybersecurity program, which I'll talk about maturity models. But let's just first now move on to, we have one-off trainings. Learn for a weekend. Now, what about continuous things? There's something called, all sorts of things like this. You can actually do your own. You can do security awareness training with MailChimp. So you can go to mailchimp.com. This is all you need to start a security awareness campaign is MailChimp. The cookie thing's annoying. It's graying it out. But anyways, something that's similar to MailChimp is Infosec Iq. It's like MailChimp for security awareness training. So it's just a little more specific. I mean, you can use all kinds of stuff. There's one called Market Hero. I don't even know what the URL for that is. Like, here we go. It's Market Hero. You can see just a bunch of marketing tools. Marketing tools make great tools for running security awareness campaigns, especially if you're like on a limited budget. You can get a free trial for Market Hero, run a security awareness campaign, and then when the trial ends, end it. And then when you're ready to do another campaign, you could spin up another free trial. I mean, that's like a way to launch a free security awareness campaign. You can do it with a MailChimp, Sendinblue, all these marketing tools. You can start security awareness campaigns. But Infosec Iq, this is one of the ones that's built specifically for phishing people, like at a company for security awareness purposes, and it has all kinds of tools and reporting assessments and all kinds of things. So once you start teaching people security awareness at a company, you want to just next start thinking about how can you have continuous management. And with me being a DevSecOps person, I talk about continuous things, continuous operations. And so this is something that becomes a foundation for a company's cybersecurity continuous operations. And, that's a staple for companies who are going to have, really well reinforced security at their company. And so then the other part that goes into that is the social engineering is real tricky, because if you're too aggressive with how you do the security awareness campaigns, and if you're like, oh, if you click on the wrong link, I'm going to set you on fire. That's when you get people who people will literally forward an email and be like, hey, everyone, this email is a bad email, so if you accidentally clicked on it, don't tell anyone. They'll say things like that, but what you want to get people to is where they'll still share with their coworkers, but you want to get them to share the email with their coworkers and be like, hey everyone, I think this is a phishing email, so don't click on it, because that's what people do. They talk behind your back, but you want the talking behind your back to be conducive. It's okay if they talk negatively about you. I mean, no one cares if they talk. If someone talks negatively about me and my cybersecurity practices, and I'm I remember I used to have to block Spotify. I get so much hate mail for blocking Spotify because it used up the company's data, and we're like, no, you need to use Spotify on your own data plan because they're not paying the data bills, and so you end up with 14 terabytes of Spotify and then the company has to pay $100 for every 50 gigabytes over their plan, and if they're 10 terabytes over, oh, you think about that bill. that bill is massive. So, I would block things like Spotify for companies and stuff like that, because it would chew up companies' data and eat their budget away, because that's how they pay people. You can't pay people if all the money is going to people trying to stream Spotify, because it's using up your data bandwidth and your data usage. Now, companies can get unlimited data these days, which helps. And then also, if you have people working from home, they're not using up your data, they're using up their data at home. So they're the ones who have to pay those overages. And some companies nowadays will pay for other people's internet. But also, if you have people working from home, like, you don't want the people from home having, let's say you have an employee, they're working from home, they have an entire family, they're bringing your laptop that you've provided them to take home. You mail them this laptop, or bring it to them, whatever, and now they have it in their home. Their family's there, and their kids are clicking on all these phishing links, because it's just going to happen. And so, once again, continuous. We have to have things that are continuous, because then we want it ultimately to be to where if people are working from home, they teach their families this stuff, because they also don't want their kids to get hacked. It has to be like a fool. Everybody has to buy into this thing. So if you want people to feel comfortable and talk, like, you don't want to scare people too much. You don't want to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to say you want to be like, hey, what if we give you $5 extra for every phishing email that you find out, and we send out about 300 a month? Then people will be like, oh, really? So every time I find a phishing email, you're telling me you're going to give me money, or maybe $10, or maybe $100. So some companies will incentivize, or they'll be like, whoever finds the most phishing emails. So, do things like gamify it and make it like incentivized and make it exciting. So all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm not going to get in trouble if I find these emails. And if I click on the wrong one, it's still a discussion. Their mop-up crew, the IR crew, and I do IR, so I'm always the mop-up crew. And being on the mop-up crew is painful, because when you're on the mop-up crew, how did almost everything start? Almost everything started because someone clicked on something. And so you're like, for my sanity, I will give you a t-shirt if you just let me give you money. Let me give you something to make it, to make my life easier as an IR professional, so I have fewer incidents and less madness and less chaos. And then the other thing is, like, if you're dealing with like petty risks, and then all of a sudden a major breach rolls in when a company's just like overloaded with like small hacks, like half the company has been hacked by like little petty links all year long, and then all of a sudden you have a real breach. Reacting to that breach means that you have to have people available also. So if you're not doing things to reduce the clicks that get a company infected, you don't want to have to pull out the technical kung fu until you're here. You want to just be like, please, please, fewer incidents, please. And so that's security awareness training. So that's the thing that I really wanted to talk about. Is like, why do we care about this? Why is it such a big deal? And let's take a look at like the foundation of a company. Let's talk about like, how does a cybersecurity program start? I used to this is something I used to just help people start their cybersecurity programs. And then that's, Pied Hacker Experience. It teaches you how to start an entire cybersecurity program from ground zero. But before making the Pied Hacker Experience, I just go from company to company to company to company and be like, all right, let's get you started. First you need this, then you need this. Okay, then you need this. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So at the ground level, when a company gets hired, the first thing they always need, this seems pretty obvious, but when I talk to some companies, it's not as obvious as they might think. But we're going to say, like, bottom of a totem pole here, we have infrastructure. Infrastructure being, what does that mean? So let's just draw a little equal sign. What kind of infrastructure do we care about? We care about infrastructure that contains stuff like VPN, so we care about constructing infrastructure that basically has these two things right off the bat. We need to make sure that, if we want to centralize things so that, if there's a company and they have data that data wants to be protected, so you want to then centralize that data somehow. And one thing you can do to centralize data is to just throw everything into a VPN. It makes it much easier to analyze data. There's been a lot of interesting things that people say when you say that, oh, you should get a VPN, and then interesting thoughts, and kind of going into the VPN piece. Getting a VPN doesn't mean that people can't find your data or can't see your data. Like if you get NordVPN versus just not using NordVPN and you connect to just straight Comcast with a firewall or something like that, you're going to have traffic going through Comcast if you're not using a VPN. And then if you use NordVPN, depending on how it's managed, some data is still going to go through Comcast, but it'll be encrypted, but then that'll go through NordVPN. So really, it's just like managing pipelines. And like VPNs, just because it's a VPN doesn't mean that it's secure, and VPNs aren't necessarily always there for security. That's something that I'm going to say. Sometimes the purpose of a VPN is to provide what's called network modularity, which I guess I'll just write this down. What does a VPN give us? VPN equals and I'll tell you what I mean by network modularity. Let's say that we have multiple sites, our own company, or at least people working out of multiple locations because people work from home. So when you have like your location and then another location and then some other random location and some other things, and maybe you also have like an AWS cloud, and maybe you also use like Azure too, who knows, then if you wanted to have a way to like kind of centralize everything so that you can look at all of it together, well, as you know, the fastest way to just make it a little easier to just watch the people that you're trying to secure and build security awareness for, first let's make sure that they're set up for success first. We don't want to set people up for failure, so we set up VPN. It provides us network modularity where we can say it doesn't matter where everything is, we can still monitor everything that's going through the VPN tunnel, because VPNs create basically tunnels. Whatever is going through that tunnel makes it much more manageable to monitor, and if you're trying to protect people, you want to monitor them. There's a lot of weird thoughts that go with monitoring, because on one end, some people worry about like, well, what if someone's monitoring people illegally? Well, you can go to jail, and it's really easy to see if you're inappropriately monitoring people. And so really, monitoring doesn't mean that you're invading people or being invasive to people necessarily. There might be malicious people, but if there is someone who's being, trying to monitor people, honestly, they probably do that on their spare time too. And so monitoring isn't an exclusive thing from like big companies and corporations. You're actually more likely to be monitored by an individual not associated with a company who's like has some interest in you for who knows positive or negative reasoning, which is kind of an uncomfortable thing to think about. But when companies are monitoring you, they have compliance things in place and other bits to make that monitoring not so invasive, because they have regulations. And so with VPN, it makes that monitoring for security much easier and much more accessible to just, doesn't matter what they're using, doesn't matter what they're doing, let's do that first. Then the next one is, one of the hardest things to pen test or brute force and all these things is if a company has multi-factor authentication, people can even stick their passwords on a sticky note on their monitor, which I was at someone's house the other day and I'm like walking around just like helping them out with some stuff, and bam, there's the sticky note on the monitor. I'm just like, oh, come on, like the password's on there and like other people come through here all the time, and sticky note on the screen with all your password, like just don't do it. But people are going to do it. They still do all the time. And so you want to assume that people are going to do things like that, and so you can do things to make it less problematic that passwords get stolen, because the most important passwords get stolen if you use what's called multi-factor authentication and say, hey, you can't log into our business assets without this multi-factor authentication enabled on whatever they're using. So just by enabling that all by itself, like the times when you like go to log into Amazon and then it wants a one-time password too, and then it like texts your phone and you're like, okay, I gotta type in. It's annoying, but if you force it, it really does just force a whole ton of security on a company that's much more security than you're going to get like as an immature business who doesn't yet have a lot of like built presence and they never had cybersecurity before. This is a little bit like a cheat code to security. And from a security standpoint, the multi-factor authentication provides more actual security than VPN. VPN provides more modularity. You want modularity so that you can access and monitor. You want to be able to enforce because, yeah, you want to be able to protect things. Multi-factor authentication, just do it. So after we have infrastructure, the next thing that we need is human training. And then the next thing we need, or what this is going to include, is we are going to need two basic things. Well, actually, I guess three things. We're going to need security awareness training materials and scheduling, and then you're going to need a response team. Oftentimes a help desk will also be repurposed as an IR team. So a lot of help desks, especially for cybersecurity, are mostly IR. So if you want to get like into IR, you can do things like find a company that has a really strong security awareness presence and get on their help desk. And when an incident happens, like you might, maybe if you're completely entry level, you might have to, get a little more experience and then get a promotion or something. But most of the time you get hired, like you're the response team too. You do the help desk, you do the response as well, and then you can specialize later. So these are the two most important things that we need. And then we also do need something continuous. It can be, some companies will do it mostly with just like regular, like weekly trainings. Some companies think that's like too much overhead and they'd rather do different things. Oh yeah, and so there's some interesting analysis tools too, because when you're working with VPN, you can do things like set up things like a pie hole where everyone who's connected to the VPN, all of their traffic goes through a pie hole and gets analyzed. And someone is saying that they noticed their ISP is practicing DNS hijacking and pie holes picking up several NX domain responses. That is something that is common, yes. It's frustrating. There are certain things that you can do. Actually, tools like Pi-hole, you can manage some of the outgoing traffic using regular expressions, and you can use Python with whitelists. This is to answer a question. You can use Python with whitelists with Pi-hole to make Pi-hole automatically look for certain types of things. And that's machine learning. So you can use machine learning with Pi-hole with a separate Python script that's dedicated to just updating a list that goes back to Pi-hole and uses regular expressions. If anyone's interested in learning how to use tools like Pi-hole to automatically try to block certain types of queries and automatically try to detect queries that you don't want to deal with, it's actually a pretty powerful tool. But yeah, ISPs can be very invasive, so to say. Even my ISP, I have so much frustration with them. I've been at like war with them keeping, like, every time I try to do something to manage my own security thing, sometimes they'll go and be like, oh, we don't want you to manage your own security, and then they'll go and change something. So then I have to go and then I ended up just getting my own infrastructure. It's a long story. But ISPs, anyways, that was a random tangent. But continuous things. You want to have continuous tools or continuous solutions or continuous ways to monitor what everyone's doing and in a secure manner. You don't want their personal information. You just want information associated with potentially dangerous things like clicking on a link they shouldn't have clicked on. Yeah, it's one of the craziest things. For anyone who doesn't know what Pi-hole is, I would say that, like, in terms of having like something that's both continuous and having like a way to centralize everything and have like a VPN send everything to. Let me just show you what Pi-hole is for those who don't know what it is and haven't seen that yet, because it really is quite handy. Also, and for those who do want to know some technical kung fu that's beneficial for, oh, this is the wrong one. That's beneficial for, this is one of my test ones, so I don't even think it's doing much of anything right now. I clearly don't know what my password is. Well, anyways, I can change this password if I need to, but I won't do I won't do it during Free Coaching Friday. But there's this sweet tool called Pi-hole where you can basically manage both DNS and DHCP, which is what I was going to show you the configuration from. And so for companies who are setting up like a VPN to centralize all of their stuff, to really kind of just see like what types of potentially malicious links are floating around, you can add, this actually comes with a malware list, but you can add different lists to this so that it will try to automatically block known malicious URLs and so on and so forth. So this is also a great security awareness tool. That's what it is. Let me try to see if I can log in one more time. Well, I'll deal with that later. But anyways, I have a couple of videos on Pi-hole. I actually have multiple ones up too. Maybe I'll just pull up a different one and see if I can at least connect to that one. I have so many labs. Oh, apparently that one's not working at all. This is my lab ecosystem. It's a jungle. Okay, so that probably just needs a complete reboot or something. I've been messing with everything. So I've been doing some, we've been doing some development because we are releasing, we're trying to make these new appliances that we made user-friendly for not just professionals. Right now they're only useful for professionals, but we want to make them also useful for people who just want home security. And it's going to have these types of things built into it because the foundation of cybersecurity, you know, finding things that will automatically provide continuous protection. Pi-hole can provide continuous protection, and also things like using MailChimp, things like that, using antivirus. Antivirus is a part of, you know, continuous, implementing continuous things. And so that's the first part of setting up your security awareness program. And then finally, at the top of our totem pole, we have cybersecurity tools, and then basically this is all just a maturity model. So, you know, we start with infrastructure first, right? And then we focus on human training once we have infrastructure, and then cybersecurity tools, you know, setting up something like SIM, or, you know, trying to set up a IPS, IDS, specialized firewalls, who knows what, just, you know, all the things that we use to then have tools that we will have. And this is the last thing that we do when we're building a cybersecurity program. If a company's never had cybersecurity before, they aren't ready for SIM. It's something that they, like, it's just a bad, like, don't do SIM if you've never worked with cybersecurity ever. And you know, companies who are new to like IPS, IDS, if they don't have any of these other elements down here, like, I'll just say first, and this is so important, and then we have second, which is why I tell people you can get a job without knowing anything technical in cybersecurity. You just have to look for the jobs that you have the capability to do. And if you can do social engineering, you can work in cybersecurity. Believe it or not, the social engineering, in my opinion, is the stuff that I see most people struggle with. I see more people pick up the technical almost effortlessly. Some people who have like high aptitude, and then some might struggle with the technical. But the thing that I see people struggle with, bar none, by far the most, is the social engineering aspect of cybersecurity. I just see some people think that part doesn't matter much, and then they wonder, what's holding them back from progressing in their career. Not getting deep into the social engineering of cybersecurity is something that's just going to hold you back, and that comes with building self-awareness. And if you don't understand yourself first, it becomes really hard to understand other people. So if you don't understand why you might get anxious about things, or why you might start to feel panicky about something, or why you might feel excited or happy, or why you're like, oh, I don't know what that is, but it looks so curious and interesting, and I just can't help myself. I have to go dive into this thing. I get like that with technology stuff, which is, I built my career around things that I know about myself. I'm like, I know that I am an awful marketer. I have to do it anyways. I try. But what I do like is I like doing things like coaching, and I like tinkering and building things and doing like more of those bits. But self-awareness is the thing that helps people like continue to move their cybersecurity career up, because at some point you get diminishing returns on your technical skills. And so really the foundation, like that human training, as long as you can make infrastructure exist, great. Can you configure a VPN and make it exist? If a VPN works, there's not one person who's better at VPNing than another person. So if one person can VPN, great. If you can set up a VPN at home, you can set up a VPN at a company. It might take more time. It might take more patience. It might take talking to a number of other people to collaborate with them. But a VPN is a VPN. And then if you know what multi-factor authentication is, most multi-factor authentication tools have documentation and directions that tell you what to do and how to do it. So the cheat code let me tell you some cheat codes. So cheat codes for setting up a security awareness program and setting up a company's maturity model for success is as long as you can read documentation and guides. Let me say add manuals in there. Okay, so if you can read manuals, documentation, and guides. Oh, I should also say Google. I'll just say, because you can Google things. Then that's all you need to get like off the ground. And then from there, the human training side is it's just a lot more complicated, because then this is just like pure social engineering. It's like, okay, the VPN works. People aren't using the VPN. Why aren't people using the VPN? How can I get everyone to cooperatively use the VPN? So then the social engineering side might say they won't use the VPN if it's not set as a requirement. And one thing I'll tell everyone here is, and I even had this one company who I was talking to in June, and they were dealing with some attacks, and I was like, you need to set up a VPN. They set up a VPN. I was like, you need to make it so that they're required to use the VPN. And then I talked to their employees last month, and they're like, oh yeah, we have a VPN, but it's just a pain. Of course it's a pain. You have to do social engineering. And I told them this. And I won't say what company this is, because I'm moving away from these types of things because I'm more focused on engineering these days. But you need to enforce that people use the VPN and say, like, they can't access their files without the VPN, and make it like the only way to get access to the company files, VPN only. Done. And then that simplifies the social engineering, is by just making it's like, why do we have fences? You have to find ways to create virtual fences for people, and people will still try to get around the fences. It's just how people are. It's kind of funny. We call people who go around virtual fences hackers, but if you work at a company, you'll see that no matter what technical thing you implement, let's say you are the ethical hacker and you're blue teamer and you're setting up all these things to prevent people from doing stuff, you'll see all these normal people hacking your stuff. and you're like, it's not hackers you're having a headache with, it's just normal users, because people are smart. And people, like, if something's inconvenient or annoys people, the human will to make things do what a human wants them to do the way that they want, like, you have to make it more convenient to use the VPN than to try to get around it. If it's more convenient to get around it, people just won't use it. And same with, like, enforcing multi-factor authentication. This is the continuous aspect. This is all continuous. It has to be continuous. You have to, once again, enforce that people do these things. It has to be enforced. So the cheat code to the human training, well, this is the only one that there is no cheat code to. This is just basically get really good at social engineering. And if you're a CISO, this is your life. This is your nightmare at night when you're going to bed. This is the first thing you're dealing with at the first email you're looking at in the morning, is this human aspect. And, you know, anyone who has to deal with all the... Yeah, that's right. Someone just said it. They're like, users will get on Google and find a way. People will find a way to get around your stuff. Like, you can, and that's why I'm like, the technical stuff has diminishing returns, because people are smart. Now, you talk to people and you're like, oh, these people are idiots. Believe it or not, those idiots are actually probably a lot smarter than you think. So if you think someone's an idiot, that idiot is probably dangerous, because they're probably more capable than you realize, which makes them dangerous. If you recognize how capable people are, they become less dangerous. If you don't recognize how capable people are, they become more dangerous. This is actual social engineering. And so that's awareness too. That's security awareness too. Are you aware that someone is capable of X, Y, Z? And if you're calling someone who's smart an idiot, maybe you're the idiot. And that's I mean, who knows? But that I run into that in the office space. They're like, oh, this person, you know. But you do, when you're learning social engineering, there's a whole lot of weird mind twisters that you got to get used to. Some real mind twisters. And so, other thing, cheat code about cybersecurity tools. Here's a cheat code for cybersecurity tools. Bam. Voila. Everyone watching this can now officially become the most high-end cybersecurity professionals on the market, because this is all you need to run it, like, be a CISO, get a senior level job. And now, if you are really bad at the technical stuff and you just don't enjoy it, and you can't even, you know, maybe you just hate dealing with the guides. So for some people, it's like, it's too stressful, they're not patient enough, it's just not worth the effort for some people, and that's okay. It's okay if it's not worth the effort for some people. Different people have different interests. Some people, if all you care about is social engineering, that's a career. That's a high-end skill. So it doesn't matter if you're good or bad at the technical. The technical is, do you like it or not? If you like it, you can be good at it. If you despise the technical, then you're going to be bad at it, because it's really hard. Like, it's just so boring. If you don't enjoy it, it's dry. It's something that's like, go and try to read legal documentation for a week. You know, it's that dry. You know, go read the NIST. Oh my gosh, let's get into it. Let's just go over to, let's talk about how boring documentation is. Let's just be real here. Now, if you're a geek like me, I think this stuff's super fascinating, but that's a personality quirk. And if you don't have a personality quirk that's like, whoa, this is so interesting, then I'll show you just how interesting it really is. Let me move my face so that you can see where I'm clicking, so you can see how we find documentation for things. So if we're building like continuous technology to monitor the people, to make sure they're all being safe, doing safe things, let's just say right here, Splunk has this documentation link. I can click on that. Google's such a good tool. And then here in Splunk, we have all kinds of stuff. Maybe we just want security. It even tells us, do you want security? Do you want IT? You know, do you want a universal forwarder? I use their universal forwarders, so maybe you don't know how a universal forwarder works. It says the Splunk Universal Forwarder is a streamlined version of Splunk Enterprise that forwards data to other Splunk instances. So we can read the forwarder manual here, and here we go. Now, when you're working at a company, like large companies, like things move so slowly that you have months to figure things out oftentimes. Now, sometimes you don't have months to figure things out. Smaller the company, usually the faster it moves. The bigger the company, like if you're working at like Amazon or if you're working at Google or some of these bigger companies, you'll have times where you're like sitting around like bored out of your mind, like what am I going to do with my time? And so you absolutely have enough time to just sit here and dig through documentation. And is this exciting? This is the part that I don't even like. I like the end result, but do I despise digging through documentation sometimes? Does it make me feel crazy? I feel crazy right now because that's what my life has been like for the past couple of weeks. It makes you feel insane. But the end results are cool. But really, that's the cheat code is we have Google, we have documentation, we have manuals. As a matter of fact, if I go over to Splunk here, I'm just seeing if Splunk had, I thought Splunk had a security awareness tool. Like, let's say that you wanted to use Splunk for continuous security awareness stuff. We could see a Splunk security awareness training. This is why you don't need to know the technical kung fu. Google this. It says Splunk case study, and then it has a case study. Oh, this is a case study from, oh yeah, here we go. Splunk case study, living security. And it talks about Splunk and security awareness training. So, I mean, one way or another, you don't have to know the technical stuff. Not really. That's the secret. You don't have to know technical stuff. Not really. What you really need to know is how's the business structure designed, how to use the documentation, and how to at least complete following guides. That you have to be good at. You have to be at least good at following guides. If you can follow guides and you can get really good at social engineering, that's the senior level right there. So, you know, like, you don't have to be an Nmap wizard. You don't have to know. Yeah, anyways, there you have it. So that's the real emphasis that I wanted to focus on for this discussion. So I guess with that being said, this, to be concise with the session, is why security awareness training is pivotal. It's critical. And it's Security Awareness Month. And one thing I do want to just encourage everyone to do, and one thing we'll talk about too, is like the homework from last week, because I'm going to bring up some homework from this week. So what I will talk about is last week we took well, actually, before we get into last week, I just want to say for security awareness training, because we're going to get into security awareness training homework, is now's a prime opportunity to just, the people in your own life, you can practice your social engineering with your people, you know, and you can do things like send safe links to people who like talk to people like, hey, would you be interested in letting me practice setting up a security awareness campaign for you? And then just see like over time if you can fool someone, and then at the same time, because it's been communicated, keep it consensual, make sure it's consensual, ask them first. Then you'll get better at learning the social engineering and phishing, and then the person who you're doing these things with will inevitably become more secure because they'll be talking to you back and forth, and they'll really appreciate you. And that's something that I just do with people in my life is, you know, people just even text me like, is this a scam? Because I practiced a lot of security awareness training like on my family. That's how I learned a lot of social engineering, is I talked to my family. I was like, hey, is it okay if I do this? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, would you be all right with me doing this? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. Like, would you be fine with me setting up like security monitoring and seeing stuff? And, you know, if you have a family that's not paranoid about like cybersecurity stuff, because some people are paranoid. They'll be like, what? I've seen people like get rid of Wi-Fi and all kinds of stuff because they're like so scared of getting hacked and like just getting like kind of over the extreme. And it's like, if you're scared of getting hacked, getting rid of the Wi-Fi and all of those things, that's not what's going to keep you from getting hacked. What's going to keep you from getting hacked is you yourself understanding what things not to click on, mostly because that's where the majority of it comes from, not your Wi-Fi. Now, someone who's targeting you specifically might come and try to hack your Wi-Fi, but that means that that person has to have skills, they have to have certain levels of talent. That takes a lot of time and motivation and dedication. And like an experienced person, I experienced people aren't going to waste their time on petty things. Experienced people are going to spend their time on things that are going to get them the most benefit. And so just like going to some random person's house and hacking them who's done nothing to you or nothing to anyone you know, or you're not going to get anything out of it. Like, hackers don't do that. That's so people do interesting things, but you can ask people if they'd be willing to let you basically run a security awareness program for them personally. And it's just a great way to learn the social engineering bits, is with your own people, your own friends, your own family, the people across the street, the person right next to you right now, if there's anyone who lives with you or not, who knows. But you can practice security awareness training, and you can practice the social engineering if you just go and talk to folks who are interested in that sort of a thing. And then it also does improve the online culture for creating a safer online world, of more people understanding security things who aren't even necessarily security professionals, because as security professionals, we have the capacity to improve the safety of everyone around us online. You know, anyone you talk to, we have that ability in us all. So that's something that I would like to encourage before I start talking about homework and bits. And if anyone has any questions while I'm talking, feel free to ask more questions in the Facebook group. If anyone is just watching from the YouTube side, feel free to hop on over to check the link in the description below if you want to get engaged in the discussion. But otherwise, if you're just enjoying watching the show, enjoy watching the show. And let's see, social engineering. We had homework to use Twister OS, and it's the first thing I'll do is I'll ask for everyone's findings. I'll probably spend some time on this too, but there's one thing that I just want to ask to see how many of you figured out how exactly Twister OS got Steam to work. So one of you actually figured out and reverse engineered how they did it, but I'm going to see if anyone else figured out how did Twister OS get Steam to work on a Raspberry Pi. For anyone who didn't do the homework, then don't worry about this. We'll move on from this after I answer the question for everyone. And for anyone who does want to go and take a look at Twister OS, I'll tell you a little bit about what the homework was. The homework was, I wanted everyone to get an idea of what multi-architecture engineering looks like, how it works, and what types of tools make multi-architecture engineering possible. And there's an application called Steam. For those of you who play games, you know what it is. And Steam is this, lets you play games and stuff. But if you try to just install Steam on a Raspberry Pi, it's not going to just install itself. It doesn't work that way. So instead, if you don't want to try to figure out how to install Steam on a Raspberry Pi to get an idea of how that might work, you can go and take a look at Twister OS and reverse engineer how in the world did they get Steam on there. And some other cool things about Twister OS is, if I click on these little arrows here, is you can make Twister OS look like Windows 95. You can make it look like Windows XP. You can make it even look like OS 10, make it look like an Apple computer. And that's another thing that you can reverse engineer in Twister OS to see, like, how in the world did they get a Raspberry Pi to look just like an Apple computer, or how in the world did they get a Raspberry Pi to look just like a Windows machine? How? And so that's what I tasked people to do. And so I'm just going to ask, did anyone figure out how Twister OS got Steam to work on a Raspberry Pi? If I don't hear an answer shortly, I'll go ahead and answer that for everyone. So we'll wait for just a second here. So since I don't see an answer yet, I'm just going to start answering. So there are different types of tools. Some are called like emulation tools. Some are used for different things. But there's one called piece of software called Wine, and technically, you know, it's not technically an emulator. It basically does what's called binary conversion, and it converts binary. That's what it does. So you can build an emulator with Wine, but this is basically what they used. And then there's another way to get this to work. You can get Steam to work with something called QEMU. And QEMU allows emulation and virtualization. And you can even do both together. So what this means is if there's an application that's not compatible with a piece of hardware, so even if you wanted to get Twister OS to work on a non-Raspberry Pi system, you might find that it won't just install. If you want to try to get, say, Twister OS to work in a virtual machine on a standard x86 laptop or desktop, you might have to use a tool like QEMU, and that's something that will allow you to go ahead and use architectures that don't belong to the hardware you are using. Now, for those who are more curious about this, feel free to go watch old Free Coaching Fridays. You can watch the last Free Coaching Friday from last week, and then I talked a little bit about that in the week before that as well, so I won't go too much further into that because we've been talking about that for a while, and I want to focus on the next thing. But absolutely feel free to play with these bits, and that brings me to the homework I would like to just assign everyone for this is basically just tell people about cybersecurity around you. Spread security awareness. And I don't know about setting anything specific, but I'll put a few examples of ways that you can spread security awareness and ways that help, people around you, people in your family, like friends. So let's figure out how can we help people this month? How can we spread security awareness so that we can help people be safer and more protected online, no matter who they are? They don't have to be our customer, just let's help some people out. So if we want to spread security awareness, something that we can do is we can make we can do things like make social media posts with security quizzes, and I'm going to show one that I thought was quite good real quick. There was a here we go. This is a good this is a really solid example of things that people can do. So you can do things like go and make polls, like what is the leading cause of data breaches? Fortunately, 20 people know that it's mostly human error. But you can go and do things like make posts like this. And so I just want to say kudos to this post and doing things like that in general. I think that's pretty great. And you can do these types of things. So anyways, you can do things like make social media posts with quizzes. You can So, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of rickrolling, but it's just basically sending someone a YouTube link with a specific YouTube video called rickrolling. I'll let you Google what rickrolling is. But basically, Google what rickrolling is if you don't know what rickrolling is, and just ask people if you have their permission to try your best to rickroll them, and they will probably not think that you can get them, and like try your hardest, try real hard to rickroll someone this month. And then when you succeed, like talk to them about it. Be like, well, like this is what malicious hackers do, except for you're getting a YouTube video instead of something malicious. And then, you know, it's practice for you. Let them know like they're helping you out by letting you do this, and then you're helping them out by giving them a free security service. And these are the two things that I'm going to recommend for now, unless anyone else has another idea. But these are the two big ones that I'm going to task out, and then I'll write that in the notiaSquad. So for those who are in the notiaSquad, I'll post the homework per usual when I get a chance. And so otherwise, yeah. So if anyone has, I guess, any last questions, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this session since it's going a little long at this point. But I do appreciate everyone taking the time to stop by, all the questions, and then good luck on the homework, and we'll talk soon.